Okay, guys. Now this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a market review of the potential long-term trades. How they call it is swing trades, right? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to review a couple of pairs, most of the pairs that I trade, and then we'll see how it goes from here. And then those are potential trades that you guys may be able to take either this week or later on in a couple of days, or at the most, I would say 2 weeks from now. All right, so maybe keep an eye on them because I'm going to do the zones, trace the zones, and tell them where there might be potential entries. All right, first we'll start with the Eurgjbp, right? Now you may, before I continue, I guess, I want to let you know that, okay, what I do is I do a naked market analysis because I believe that if you can't read the market, there's no indicator in the world that will help you trade. So you must, I repeat, you must know how to read the market. All right? Thank you. So let's begin. Now, Eurgjbp. So I look at the monthly support, right? I color them as a blue. I see that there's a support here, right? It touched here, right? So as we can see, there's a weekly, monthly support here, which is also a weekly support technically. It touched that price 1, 2, 3, 4 times. This is where we are currently, right? So what can we expect? What can we expect? That prices may drop. So that's an interesting zone. As you can see, it's close to a trend line. So that zone is pretty interesting, right? As you can see, it's already setting up to go down. So depending on your entry standards, this might be a trade to consider as for a sell, right? Because everything seems to be aligning for a sell, right? Now, in the worst case scenario, right? What happens if it breaks that support? I mean, that resistance, sorry, it's a resistant, my bad. So there's a resistance here. That's an interesting zone, right? So what happens if it breaks that resistance? I would target that area right there as my next point to watch, to look at. Because you can see, it even goes as a monthly support. That's if it breaks. That's if it breaks the support. I mean the resistance, sorry, why am I mixing up this morning? My bad. If it breaks that resistance, that would be another interesting zone. But from what I see, it's going to do a push down. So that would be a good entry for a sell, right? Because there's a trend line also. So most likely, if it's on a downtrend, sales are more favorable for that pair. Right? Because this is the trend line. See? If I trace my other trend line, as you can see, it should most likely drop down here, test this zone out, or either break it. So if you were to take a sell, target that area as your take profit, and then see if it breaks, take some of the profits, and if it breaks, it's going to go down. Right? But that zone right there is interesting. This daily area, I put my daily white. Maybe an interesting zone to look at, because you see, every time it runs above that price, it dropped. It dropped, right? So in the worst case scenario, it may go back up here and drop again. But most likely it's going to drop from that area. So depending on your trade entries, either you enter now or you have entered, or you enter after a stronger confirmation, right? Okay, now we have Eurojpy. Okay, in terms of monthly supports, I see a monthly support here. I'll even put it even a little bit further up. You can see it touched it once, twice, the top of this. So Eurjpy currently is in a interesting zone, right? So we'll see how it goes, because if we go based on the weekly, my weeklies are purple. There's an interesting zone right here. If you look, you see that every time it was around that area, price dropped. Right? Price went up. So that's an interesting zone. So as you can see there, it already dropped. So this may be a pullback for a sell. Again, Based on your confirmations, you can see where in that zone you could take the sell, right? So this is what I see right here around that area. It's a strong area for long-term sell, right? But not as a long term, but a good position, so a reversal sell type of situation. So you get a good 100 pips out of this trade, I would say. But that's a strong area right there for something to happen, for a little drop. So it may drop, go to a Fibonacci level and go up. But see, we're looking at it from a weekly standpoint. So if you go on H4, you should at least expect it to drop within that trend line from, let's say, that area here to here. That would be a good point where to take your some of the profits, or just take all your profits if you want to bother with this trade long term. But that would be a good entry, a good exit area around that price action, around that trend line, right? So that's what I have for Eurojpy. Eurocad. Eurocad. Well, there's a monthly in terms of a monthlies, right? You can see that's an interesting monthly support. Resistance, sorry, monthly resistance right here. Pretty strong. Here also, so that would be a interesting monthly resistance. On the weekly point of view, as you can see, it's in that area, right? So if price enters that area, it could be an interesting sell. Because if you look in the past, every time it touched that area, price dropped, right? See price dropping here, price dropped here, price dropped here. So from that area, you enter as a sell, you should be able to get a good couple of 100 pips, right? So wait, yeah, so as you can see now, it's going up strong into that area, and once it enters that area, you can consider a good sell. And again, if you look at your take profit, look to take around that area, because if we look at the overview, no, well, let me see. I'm looking at the trend. On a monthly level, it seems to be like zigzagging, right? On a weekly level, short-term wise, the overall trend is up. It's clearer if you see it on the daily. It's a short-term daily trend, right? That's going up, daily uptrend, right? So in that area, you can still take a sell and aim for that area as taking at least partial profits, most of your profits or partial of your profits, or even all your profits. So that would be a good area to look at for their Eurocad. Now we have EurUsd, right? So now I have to look at it. There's a weekly, now I'm already entered it as a buy. Now we're going to look at this pair as a potential future sell. As you can see, there's a resistance here, right? But I don't find it very strong. As you can see, when it dropped by a little bit, right? So me, if I were to consider a better weekly resistance, I would aim for this, for prices to go there. As you can see in that area, you can see strong drops, right? So me, I'm more conservative in my trading style. So me, I would focus on prices going in that area, right? It's already going up because it was a strong buy, right? So I'll wait for prices to go there. If prices enter in that zone, depending on the confirmation, I could take a quick sell, but I wouldn't stay long, to be honest with you. Because if I enter here, I could at least aim for my price to take my profits, some of my profits around that trend line, and let it roll to see if it could break that trend line and go down on a downtrend, right? This is how I would see this pair. Let's look at the EurUsd. Well, what do we have here? Okay. Now, sorry for the moment of silence, for the moment of it was quiet. I had things to check. Okay, so now let's continue to where we were. EurUsd, right? Where are the strong areas? It's in a good area right here, right? There's a good monthly resistance. Good monthly resistance around that area. Right? Prices in that area went here, dropped, tested, dropped, that area, went in that area, went up. If we go in the weekly to see if we can see it clearer. same thing. See, dropped, 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 right? So we could expect for EurUsd to enter that area, and we could expect a sell. Based on your confirmation, you should know when to enter, but that area is a good area for a sell. If you want to narrow the area because it may be too wide, you narrow it in terms of weekly. So you can see that this is the weekly. And you could try to play with this area. So you know that if it enters that weekly area, you could expect a good sale, right? So we'll see. We have to weigh it out. And if it enters that area, we could go for a sell. Quick sell. A good sell, actually. We could stay in that position for a couple of days once it starts. Right? So you could enter here, exit around that area, which would be a good amount of pips. Right? Thank you for that one. Next. Euraud. As you can see, there was a strong trend line, right? And a support. Around here. And here, right? So it's already going up. So if you didn't enter, you missed that trade, right? Now, let me see if I have a clear idea of what next resistance I could look at to take the sell. This is an interesting area. Let me see that area right there on the monthly. That's a monthly interesting area here. As you can see, prices touched, it dropped, price touch here, went up. Right? That area. Weekly. those areas, that area is pretty interesting in terms of a weekly. So if it enters that, when it just enters that area, if you want to go as a weekly, you can see between here and here, the weekly area. Price enters there, you could take a buy. So you enter here, you take a buy, you can start taking some of your profits or all of your profits in that particular area, right? Now, this is the CHF GPY. Where are the interesting areas for a sell? If you look on the monthly supports, the resistance, on the monthly resistance, you can see that that area is pretty interesting. That area right there is pretty interesting, right? That area is pretty interesting. As you can see, every time you hit it, it dropped. Now let's look at it from a weekly's perspective. So look at from a weekly standpoint, it's already close to that area. So if we look at that weekly right here, purple is weekly, all my weekly resistance. As you can see, it hit here, it bounced down. So it touched that price a couple of times, dropped. When in that price action went up, so it touched that price area twice already. Right, it touched it twice, went up. So right now you can start paying attention for a sell. Wait for your confirmation, and then within a couple of days or hours, depending on how the market decides to move, it's going to drop, where you can start paying attention to start taking some of your profits. As you can see, it's when goes close to the trend line, right? Or on the daily terms, even that, you can see enters that area, breaks the trend lines, you know it's going to go for a good sell. Right? This is what I have for CHF GPY. Now this is the CAD CHF. Now let's look at it. If you look at the monthly, it's already very low. It's a historic low actually, right? So that pair you could trade as a very long position trade. because the support, monthly support is right there. All-time low, right? Price didn't go that low ever before, so you stay there. You enter. You can take your start taking profits around that monthly support resistance. Sorry. And then if you want to go further, you let it break. So what may happen is it may go try, as you can see, it may try to go lower, or this may just be a pullback. If I go with the Fibonacci, that area may be interesting to take a buy, or it could drop a little bit here and go back up. But this pair I only see as a buy for now. But like I said, where it's interesting to take the profits, it's around that price action. So if you look at the weekly supports, resistance, sorry, you can clearly see that when it gets to that area, that's when you can start considering taking a sell. But right now it's all buy. So look for the pullback. Take a long-term buy, and you stay in that trade for a while because it's in the all-time low. If you're a little bit more conservative, you could look at those weekly resistance to indicate to you when you should start taking some profits or a lot of your profits. If you base it on that area, right? But most likely it should go on the top of that mountain right there, top of those mountains, right? So this is what I have for the CAD-CHF, right? Now, okay, this is the EurChf. As you can see, on a monthly level, it was at an all-time low. If you look at the support, right? So this pair would be a good pair to consider a buy, right? It may go up for months, even a year, if you decide to enter now. As you can see on the weekly level, it did a little pullback, plans to go up for a long time. Me personally, I would consider, if I'm patient, I would take some profit at that level, right? That area, that's where you can start thinking of taking a lot of the profits or most of the profits. And if you're more aggressive, you could actually wait to go for that area. And that's when you can start taking most of the profits too. But that trade is a trade where you could be in for months and all you could do is watch your profits grow because it's at a very low point, right? With the Corona thing, of course, I would consider taking most of my profits around that area. But if you're more aggressive style, target that area. So you could be that trade for months. In the worst case scenario, it could go down and go back up for months. So yeah, that's a good pair to consider a buy. Now, let's look here. Now, this is the weekly. It's about the same as the monthly support. As you can see, it went at as a all-time low. So this is another pair where you could stay there for a very long time, where I would consider starting taking some profits or most of my profits if I'm a position swing trader. It's in around that area. Around here. This is where I would consider taking profits, right?